And we are live. Hey guys, it's the most trash shoe on a show on YouTube. Most trash shoe. Ryan, you're on camera. Garage Goons, episode 12. My dog just entered frame, and also Ryan. Neither guy, I don't think, signed up for a video. Sparky, you're right in the way. So yeah, before my dumbass cut off the last stream, Sparky, you better not fucking ruin the camera right now.
Sorry, do you want to start over?
No, it's fine. It's total. It's fine as long as the stream is good. Like that's all about. It's par for the course. It's the most trash show on YouTube. So
Okay.
We're right on brand. So before I totally blew up our last string by yanking my mic out. You were talking about being running back heavy and then going tight ends because in our league, in our fantasy league, which is sort of a standard league, it's not a PPR, it's not a half PPR, but we have bonuses for hitting yardage totals. For example, 100 yards receiving for a receiver, or really anybody receiving for 100 yards gets a 5-point bonus. Rushing for 100 yards is a 5-point bonus, and 350 throwing is a 5-point bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give you guys context. Okay, so you were saying that you've noticed in the past the guys who have won league have had an elite level, top 4, top 5 tight end and really good running backs.
Yeah, I think that the success in those areas are primarily what gets you at least into the playoffs. That and avoiding injury, of course.
Yeah.
I just think that historically over the last like 4 or 5 years, the team with Travis Kelce has made it to the finals.
That's interesting.
Now, I'm not saying they've won it, but I mean, this was the only year where, the team with Travis Kelce didn't make the playoffs. But in the last 5 years in our league, that's kind of, what I noticed was happening. So that's kind of why I prioritized getting a good tight end in this year's draft. And unfortunately, he just got injured.
Yeah. It's interesting that because I could definitely see how supply and demand, right? So if you have one of the elite level tight ends, which usually every year there's like 4 to 6 of them, maybe 7 if I'm being super generous sometimes. But I mean, it changes over the years. Like it used to be Jimmy Graham and Gronkowski, and then there was a slew of other guys that like were kind of in the conversation. And over time, Travis Kelce. Then you have George Kittle enters the picture. But like for me, when I'm drafting, I always think like, man, I could get this really good tight end. But there's only 5 of them, and I feel like I always feel like I could get more value out of a receiver. But obviously, guys. Sorry, my stream messed up before, but I'm in dead last in my league, so I have the plaque. That's what it is. It's a plaque that holds a license plate that says I suck at fantasy football. It's right there on the front of my truck for everyone at work and all of my friends to see it.
On the front.
On the front, yeah.
It's supposed to be on the back so everyone can see it when you're driving.
Oh, God. Well, you take it off, you motherfucker. It's already on there and it's raining. I put it on. I thought more people would see it on the front, but
more people drive behind you and see that than, no one's looking in their rearview mirror at your front.
I wasn't even thinking about that. All right, well, whatever. It's on my truck. So yeah, my strategy is complete ass. I trade away all my good players. Long story short, but like, yeah, I think that my strategy is definitely going to be running back heavy early. But also, I think in the past, where you start to get later on in the rounds of the draft, like in a 12-man or 10-man league, where a lot of people are starting to look at like flexes. You start thinking, okay, I'm going to take the highest. Like I'm going to take a chance on a guy that like a Devontae Parker or like one of these guys that has like a ceiling or like a potential, and you're getting him late in the draft. So it's like a lot of upside and then you don't expect much from him. I think I've done that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say now is I think next year I'm going to start going for the handcuff thing. Because dude, if not that Foreman, for example, on Tennessee is a stud by any means, but if you had him, he was serviceable.
So here's my thing about handcuffs is I only view drafting a handcuff if you are in contention for playoffs. I think that you should start ensuring your top quality running backs once you've actually, secured a playoff spot. Okay, I'm there. Worst thing that can happen to me now is injury, and
you said draft. So you mean put a waiver in for one?
Yes.
So you wouldn't draft a handcuff at all?
I wouldn't necessarily draft a handcuff. Now that's the thing though, is that how many real handcuffs are there anymore? Because I think that something that's really popular amongst the NFL right now is running backs by committee. So it's like, how many running backs are actual handcuffs? Maybe 5?
I think, yeah, because there's only like maybe 2 or 3 running backs that are the quintessential like bell cow running backs that get 20 carries a game, like Derrick Henry, when he's right, Christian McCaffrey, when he's right, Saquon Barkley, and I don't know, maybe Dalvin Cook, and that's about it. Yeah, like everybody else shares time, but but I think you could still call a guy that has some sort of a role, but like it's just not the role, a handcuff. Like Tony Pollard, for example. If you drafted him, you're doing all right. Like it wasn't like you weren't excited to start him any week, but like if you had a running back on a bye and you had Tony Pollard, you're like, all right, cool. Like he has a shot of like he has like an RB1 ceiling, like a low end RB1 ceiling. He can give me 15 points.
Oh, absolutely. But I think that what kind of led me to question drafting a handcuff is, I thought that you were basically getting at, you want to draft like an Ezekiel Elliott, but you also want to draft his handcuff just in case they're injured. But there's never a scenario where you're excited to start both of those guys in your lineup.
No, that's true. I'm just saying for depth purposes, and I would say in that specific example you gave, I think that's a perfect scenario if you get Tony Pollard, let's say after like round 8. Like if he's there, you filled out your running back, 3 receivers. Everyone does their draft different, but then maybe you got locked up your quarterback, and now you're kind of looking at, okay, do I want to go flex here, or do I maybe want to get an insurance policy? That's a specific scenario I'm talking about when a lot of people are thinking about starters still. I'm thinking about depth because I feel like that flex position, that third receiver, you can kind of every year there's a serviceable guy on the waiver wire that you can kind of find to fill that spot,
especially when it comes to receivers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing is I took a look at my lineup once, I was eliminated from playoffs, and I didn't have a single player on my team that finished top 10 in their position. And that was primarily because of injury. It's not like I drafted, poor players or anything, but for sure the area that I neglected in was receivers because there's just so many of them that I felt like I could just kind of.
And then also too, the value on them changes all the time. Like think about what we thought about DK Metcalf last year being, in my opinion, I know Lockett had himself a fine season, but to me, he was the alpha omega on that team, and Lockett was cleaning up the scraps. This year, it almost seemed like the exact opposite. It seems like it changes so often, unless you're talking about those top tier Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams,
Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, even in my PPR league, I drafted, and people called me an idiot for it, but it just was a value thing at the time. I drafted Justin Jefferson in the second round, high in the second round, and he lived up to it. And then like in round 4 or 5, I got Adam Thielen, and honestly, I started them both like most of the season, and then I eventually traded Thielen because I got some depth at receiver through pickups. And I got a running back for him, but they were both producing. I think there's rare scenarios where you can have 2 guys on the same team, but it's not ideal.
It's not. It's not ideal depending on how you look at it. It definitely increases your odds for a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
But it also guarantees that you'll only get 1 touchdown. right? So it definitely
Yeah.
limits your upside.
I think there's certain situations like if you, for example, if you help me out on the Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins, you got D-Hop, and let's say you also later on drafted, AJ Green. I know AJ kind of fizzled, but like there's definitely teams that have multiple guys that are kind of threats. It's rare. There's usually one guy. It's usually one guy. But another perfect example is the Bucks. Like I can't even tell you of the three guys who's the real wide receiver one. They're all fucking incredible.
I mean, it's definitely unpredictable. It's just, hey, whatever the defense is prioritizing covering, Tom Brady will probably hit the open guy.
Tom Brady is such a fucking. He's a. It's like. He's the GOAT and he's the best, but like he went to Tampa, right? And he just got Bruce Arians was like, oh, I'm not gonna allow AB on my team, and he's like, I want AB. We were good together, and then he gets him right, and then he already has these Godwin and Evans and all these guys, and then he gets his boy Gronk over there, and now he has like a fucking all Madden team over there, and it's like it's weapons everywhere. It's almost like it's only going to help his cause for greatness because he won a Super Bowl already. But it's like, if he took a step back, how would you even know it? Because he has all these fucking dudes around that he can like it's literally someone's open on every play because it's just too many guys.
So there was a stat earlier this year that Tom Brady is on pace to throw more touchdown passes in his 40s than he did in his 20s.
Yeah. They were also talking about in New England, like before he got that last Super Bowl, when they said he was washed because he had like one bad season for Tom Brady, like before they went to Super Bowl against the Rams. They had like he was really frustrated. It was like, remember a bunch of losers on that team, like Rex Burkhead and Dobbins and all these losers catching the ball. They're probably all out of the league at this point. I know Rex Burkhead is still playing, but like, they had a bunch of scrubs on that team.
Rex Burkhead actually torched your Chargers.
I know. I watched. I was really sad about it. Yeah, that was awful. We're not talking about that right now. Yeah, that hurt. But fuck, I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about Tom Brady.
They said after all these guys on ESPN got on the mic and were Max Kellerman and all these guys are saying, the cliff is coming. The cliff is coming. He can't be good for that much longer. You see the decline. This is it. Meanwhile, they got dudes like you and me out there fucking running routes. And he's still, somewhat competitive. Like, I think it was like barely a 500 season. Maybe he got to like 9 or 10 wins. I don't know. But he was really pissed, really frustrated. But since that season, he's had another Hall of Fame career since then. He's had 2 Super Bowls since then. He's breaking all the records. And it's like, even if like you can't tell if he's actually like physically like digressed anywhere because his weapons are just so ridiculous.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's over the hill. He's over 40, and you got to think he's an injury away, right? The older you are, the harder it is to overcome injury. I think he's just an injury away from what I want is for him to just come out and say, this is my last season, and for him to either, go out with a bang or lose gracefully and then retire. I hope his career doesn't come to an end because of injury. That would make me sad. With that being said, he's a total vegan. He eats like nothing but plant-based products. And I think that kind of translates into, his body aging well. And I think that's one of the main things that sets him apart, aside from being a great quarterback. I think that's what helps his body hold up so long.
I think too, like we have to be honest, like this doesn't happen if the rules don't drastically change over the past 20 years. Like you can't hit them high. That was established. We know about the whole Saints Super Bowl thing with Greg Schiano saying affect the head or whatever. Was it Greg Schiano? I think it was. The D coordinator saying affect the head, talking about hitting Colin Kaepernick in the head, trying to concuss him, which was normal back then. but it was just like somebody, some dick recorded it and then basically canceled him, you know. And then Tom Brady, right, the Matt Castle year, gets blasted in the knee, and they say, okay, you can't hit him low. And then a couple of guys get like, I don't remember who got like their lungs crushed or like something, but then they said you couldn't land on them. So you can't hit them. You can't hit them high. You can't hit them low. So they're saying hit them in the middle, but then also you can't form tackle them, which is how they teach you in football. Get low, wrap around the waist, and drive your hips all the way to the ground. You have to somehow get them 90% of the ground and do like a matrix move off of them. So I think he has, as well as every other quarterback in the league, benefited from the rule changes that are supposed to be there to prove. Because I don't, if guys are coming off the end and fucking Jadeveon Clowney or you know, that's a terrible pick your pass rusher, blast him blindside, and they don't throw flags for that, and they're just allowed to run free all day. You know, I can't remember the dude's name on the Saints, but he had like 4 sacks or something that game.
So take your logic, right?
Yeah.
About how, you know, Tom Brady, a factor to him playing until he's 40 is because of the rule change, right? Even with that rule change, I don't think any of these other quarterbacks are going to play in their 40s.
No, well, what I was saying was all of them benefit from it. Yes. But I'm just saying he doesn't get to play like this at this age if the rules haven't been changed. Meaning everyone's benefiting, but Tom specifically, because of the age, because of his lack of mobility and athleticism, I don't think, for me, that I think he especially benefits because he's a rare breed of quarterback, which we're seeing less and less of, which is I'm in the pocket and I'm a master of the pocket. You see him step up out of stuff all the time. He's very good at shifting and shuffling and moving up, moving back, and just getting out of the way of the pass rush, which is a crazy skill in itself because most guys see that nowadays and they're just, fucking, I'm out of here. Russell Wilson's out of there. Lamar Jackson's out of there. But he benefits from that because you don't just get free run. You don't just get a free hit on those guys anymore, I feel like.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's, when an owner, loses their star quarterback, their star investment, and then, they cry to the league and, of course they're going to, bend the rules a little bit. I think that the roughing the passer calls are some of the most ridiculous calls out there.
Bad.
Especially the landing on the quarterback.
I can't stand that one.
You don't want to tackle anyone high or anyone low, whether they're a quarterback or, quarterback, running back, anybody, nobody wants to see great athletes getting injured. I get that it's part of the game, but if you can make an adjustment to improve safety, then, I'm all for it. But the blatant favoritism to the quarterback is frustrating. And it's also frustrating when, the landing on the quarterback, I want to say it was 2018 where that was horrifically bad.
Oh yeah, it was super. One of the guys on the Jacksonville, remember they called them the Saxonville Jaguars because they were getting so many sacks all the time. They had one of the best pass rushes in the league at the time. One of those dudes blew his ACL out because he was afraid to get a penalty. And by the way, they still threw the flag. I forgot who he sacked, but I want to say maybe it was Watson at the time on the Texans. But anyways, he sacks him. He tries to do this twisting motion to make sure he doesn't land on him. And something happened with their feet where their legs got tangled and he blows his ACL out because he's not tackling the way they train you safely to tackle. And here's the other nuance aspect of it that pisses me off. Okay, so you can't land on him, but also so my thought would be as a defender, okay, let me hit this motherfucker really hard so I don't have to land on it. He's just going to fall over. If you leave your feet, that's also a penalty now. That's also, if you leave your feet, it's called launching. There's a penalty called launching. And it's specific to quarterbacks I mean, it's for everyone, but it happens against running backs all the time. You see guys diving into running backs. They never swallow their whistles, throw the flags in their pocket. But quarterbacks, if you leave your feet, it's called launching. And there's literally, it's like, I wish they had a tutorial. We're getting so far out in the weeds here, but I wish they had a tutorial on like what they expect for a hit, like robotically wrap up and then hope the quarterback doesn't throw it, and then just and look at the ref and like bear hug him, and then hopefully the ref blows his whistle because the play's dead. Is that how they want? You know what I'm saying? Like we're real close to flags coming out here, but so we could talk about awful rule changes all we want, but Tom Brady's the GOAT. I'm finally coming around to say that. I think that the Pats organization in general is a dirty, cheat organization, but you can't do that much winning over that period of time without being fucking great. Back to fantasy football. Okay, so you prioritize tight ends over receivers? Running backs one.
I definitely did that this year.
Okay.
But I mean, like I said, I paid the price for that personally because I didn't have a single player finish in the top 10 in their position across the board. And receiver is not necessarily where I suffered with my injuries. You know, my best receiver was Deontay Johnson, and he finished 11th overall. You know, wildly consistent, but just never gave me those week winning performances that are gonna, you know, not only guarantee me a win, but also increase my point total for potential playoff tiebreakers.
I feel like short of like a 3-week, or maybe I think it was a 3-week injury. I feel like he is the receiver version of who I drafted at running back for my RB2, Josh Jacobs, where it's like every game he had like an 8-point floor. And by the way, guys, this is standard, not PPR. And sometimes he would find the end zone, but like he was always between like 7 and 15 points. Like he never had like a whole, wow, there he is game, you know? Like he just never blew up. And I think if you have all guys like that on your roster, that's a good formula to make playoffs. You know, like you said, nobody you had was statistically in the top 10, but if you're all flirting with the top 10 range and you're really solid everywhere, that's, you know, my problem that I always have every year is I shoot myself in the foot because I go for sexy. I go for like, oh man, you know, this guy's going to have a really big ceiling, or like boomer bust guys. I can't tell you how many times I fucking drafted Deshawn Jackson, man, because like I've seen games where you remember that game where like 2 years ago where like Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing for the Bucks and he had like fucking 200 yards on like 3 receptions?
In 2019, I drafted Deshawn Jackson in the 13th round. I looked at Hager and said, I'm going to trade him to Tyler next week. And I did just that.
Yeah. And I fell for it. I always go for the okie doke, man, because, you know, like, you know what it is? I like consistency, but I cannot stand like the dink and dunk style of ball. I can't, like, if you were a Patriots fan, for example, between the years of like 2004 and like 2010, besides the Randy Moss year, maybe it was after that, but like, you remember when Tom Brady was just like 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. Alex Smith, same thing on the Chiefs. Dump it down, screen pass, hand off the ball, 5 yards. I hate receivers in that. Like Cooper Kupp, this year has been undeniable, and they actually have been running him down the field. But like the guys in the past that I just couldn't stand watching were like the guys that would only run like 7-yard seams and like fucking dig routes and curl routes and stab routes, you know?
Yeah, but those are the guys that you know, get open in the end zone, and they're the ones that get you those, you know.
PPR has really opened my eyes to think differently, even in my standard drafting, because like now I'm forced to watch these guys more often, and you really are going after guys that get targets. And you know, yeah, it's boring, but man, I got to do something different because my team, I was ass this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, there's always a certain amount of luck involved, right?
Yeah.
And part of that, once again, is avoiding injury. It just happens.
I think that's kind of, I think I might have even enjoyed 2020 year more than this year, simply because like certain guys, if your guy had COVID this year, you were just like, you're just fucked. Like you just had to deal with it. Whereas 2020, they were so freaked out by it that they were shifting whole games around. If one guy got COVID and he was like a big enough player, like a starting running back, starting quarterback, this year they were like, fuck it, play with your backup, go in there. Last year they were like, we're going to play on fucking Wednesdays now because, you know, we're moving stuff around. And
so they did that this year.
One
time they moved 3 games and they did it obviously one time. And I personally think that it was only because the Rams were suffering from COVID. They were one of the teams, and I think that, you know, hey, high market playoff implications. They rescheduled that game and used it as an excuse to reschedule others. However, I'm convinced that if the Rams didn't have COVID, a huge COVID breakout right after a divisional win against the Cardinals, I don't think that those games would have been rescheduled. Look at last year.
But that's like the one example. All I'm saying, I get it, but I think that, yeah, because the Rams had what, 4 or 5 guys out?
Yeah. I mean, look at last year. Denver literally started a receiver at the quarterback position last year.
Yeah.
Because all their quarterbacks were out.
Because they realized they could only do so much. Because I remember they were delaying games and some guys couldn't shake it in under a week. Mm-hmm. So that's when they got to the point to where they're like, listen, they even talked about forfeits last year. They're like, yo, if you don't get to play 16 games, it is what it is. We'll see how it all pans out. But do you remember that whole thing? Like, hey, you guys might not get 16 games. So, you know, you might have to forfeit or we might not count it against you, but your record will not be, you know, a full 16. It might be based off 15 games. It might be 14, whatever.
And that's kind of where I came with that point. Was the NFL came out, you know, big bad NFL came out and said, yeah, we're not accommodating you for a lack of protocol. If there are unvaccinated players, you know, games are not going to be rescheduled. And they came out and said that, and then they broke that. And the timing for them breaking it was just too, you know, perfect in my opinion. And I think it was just all because of the high market Rams.
Yeah, I mean, and also you have some studs that are openly. Well, now we know like Rodgers, for example, is openly not vaxxed. We know Kirk Cousins has openly been not vaxxed. We know a bunch of guys that have chosen not to go that route, which is fine. But it's just like, I don't know. I guess what it is I'm salty because one of my leagues I had fucking Austin Eckler. I was in second place and going into playoffs, and I had the most points in the league. Eckler gets COVID. I'm short at running back. And my other running back I had in the beginning of the season was Henry. And I was able to finesse using my whatever extra players to get James Conner, who kept me right in the mix. I dropped all the way from first to second, and that was like my floor from losing Henry. So I felt really good about my squad, but dude, when Eckler went down and I ran out of fucking transaction moves and Connor was injured and I'm starting old, tired-ass Devontae Freeman, yeah, I'm just salty about that. So I guess maybe I'm biased wanting them to like, you know, preserve games. But also I'm a Chargers fan and, you know, they shit the bed against the Texans. And I'm not saying Austin Eckler not being there is why they lost, but I definitely think it could have been a different game if he's there because, you know, guys like that in fantasy and in real life are, you know, if you have a guy that's a multi-use running back, the game script can go so many different ways, but they're always involved.
Right.
You know, what do you think about Cordero Patterson having what do you think about multi-position fantasy players? Do you think that it should be allowed? Do you think it's bullshit? Do you think it's awesome, like a cheat code hack that you can have?
So multiple positions, I mean, sure, why not?
Yeah.
I think that it's a good thing that platforms did away with the whole Taysom Hill tight end thing. That would have just been, you know, that.
Oh, they were trying to pay him as a tight end or something?
Well, no, it's just he played tight end, and you know, so on most platforms up until last year, you could use him as a tight end or a quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, you're going to use him as a tight end and get those quarterback points.
Right,
And
right.
That's as big a cheat code as anything. But about Cordero Patterson, I think that what's even more, wild than the fact that he can be a gadget and used as a running back or a receiver is how many teams missed on him over the years. I remember he was a Viking and he was, that he was going to be the next hot thing. He's been on 3 or 4 different teams, Vikings and Bears come to mind. And then he goes down to Atlanta where they have literally Kyle Pitts and no one else. And suddenly, Cordero Patterson's a top 10 fantasy option.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know that it's so much a miss. I think it's like, I think there's certain coaches that know, and I don't even know if I'm drawing a blank on the Atlanta Falcons head coach name, but I don't even know if he's going to have that job next year.
Exactly, because he's not a good coach.
Okay. But I also don't know if that was the OC, putting that in. But I feel like certain guys, you see them go to different franchises and just blossom, because guys figure out ways to use them. And I think that he's always had the raw speed and the raw talent. But yeah, I don't know, man. I
just think that when so many teams miss on something like that, it's like, how? There's Atlanta has no good pass catching options. Russell Gage, your wide receiver 1.
Well, that's because we could talk about that whole garbage mental health vacation home.
But that's kind of my point though, is Cordero Patterson was drafted by a team that already had a bunch of studs, and just was never. I
just need to see it replicated because, like, for me, I can't. He's one that I look at, and I had him on a team. I loved him, and I had him in my receiver slot because I was really shallow at receiver, and I had a bunch of running backs in one of my leagues, and it was fantastic. But what I would say is that I need to see it one more time because we've seen instances, and New Orleans Sean Payton is a perfect example. I can name you a litany of receivers that some other coach totally fell for the funk on it and paid to get one of the guys that Drew Brees was thrown for. That, like, remember there's like 3 years in a row where he had 3 or 4 guys hovering around 1,000 yards. So everybody thought, oh man, if I just get this guy, he'll be a better receiver. Same thing with Jimmy Graham. He was like 28 when he went to Seattle, something like that. He wasn't that old. And, I don't think anybody would say Russell Wilson is a bad quarterback or can't get the ball to who he's trying to get the ball to. But I think that certain guys know how to see a skill set and say, okay, I know how I can get the most out of this guy in my system.
Well, I think the one thing that you're forgetting is that Jimmy Graham was actually having a decent year, but he suffered that knee injury, and he just hasn't been the same.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I did. I guess I did whiff on that. All I'm saying is, like, certain guys, Leonard Fournette, another guy, they can't rush him out the door fast enough in Jacksonville to say, get your fat ass on out of here. He has one really good season, another solid season, and then after the solid season, they were like, fuck this guy. We're getting TJ Yates, who I don't even know if he plays anymore, is in here. And now eventually Robinson replaced him, who is a good running back. But he goes over to the Bucks, and he has a really solid year, really good year.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Robinson because he's one of my favorite running backs. I really root for guys that are undrafted, and I thought it really sucked that he had the year that he had last year. Definitely, top 10 production at the position, and then they go and draft Travis Etienne in the second round, and it's like, what are you doing as a franchise when you already have the talent and can, you have the opportunity to rebuild your receiving core for your rookie quarterback or strengthen your offensive line, and you go and draft the position that you already have. And
bro,
so,
yeah.
So that already goes to show that they don't believe in James Robinson. He
Yeah.
only got the work again this year because Travis Etienne got injured. And now James Robinson, he just tore his Achilles.
Well, yeah, it's messed up. And then you know what else, dog? Like even Darrell Williams on KC, right? They win the Super Bowl with him. He looks like a stud in playoffs, right? Somebody kissed the frog. That dude turned into a prince, dude, and nobody believed in him. He was behind Kareem Hunt all those years. Then something happens. Somebody gets hurt. He's like a superstar in the Super Bowl. And then they go and they draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who, for my money, every time I watch them play, I'm like, every time Clyde's on the field, I know his numbers are all right. But I'm like, if you just took Williams and like, I don't know if he's drafted or not, but he strikes me as a guy that I would think was like pretty low profile. Like maybe he earned his way from the practice squad. I don't know his story, but similar to Robinson, right? And I think coaches have like a pride sometimes where it's like, well, I refuse to believe that I missed on this guy, so that he has to be bad. There's got to be something bad. There's a reason why he didn't get drafted. So now I have to find my guy. And it's like a weird ego thing.
Yeah. I think that part of the reason why they drafted a running back at all was because Damian Williams announced that he was going to opt out of the 2020 season. I think that that's one of the main reasons why they went and drafted a running back.
I thought wasn't there on the Chiefs that were really
there was Damian and Darrell's still there actually.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't Darrell the Super Bowl the guy in 2019. Oh Damian. Fuck. Man, I can't keep these motherfuckers they need to fight over that last name or something. And they both have D first names. It's fucked up.
Yeah. It's tough out there.
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know. I think to sum up next year, I mean, it can only get better for me, right? Like, I can't, like, last place is, like, by definition, there's no lower.
Statistically, you shouldn't get last place 2 years in a row, so you can only go up.
You trade your players away again.
Yeah, no, I could trade all my players away. I could do that too. You know what? I ran out of patience with Diggs. I felt like personally, I felt like he knew I drafted him, and or somebody knew I drafted him. Maybe it was fucking Emmanuel Sanders, that motherfucker. So because like he had 1,600, he was averaging 100 yards a game the year before. He was the yards leader, receiving yards leader. Look it up. 2020, Stephon Diggs stats, 100 yards a game, okay? And fucking the first 6 weeks was brutal, man. That was my like, oh, that's easy. I don't even have to think about that.
And I think that is kind of what ties into, you know, your philosophy that you said, hey, no matter what, I'm drafting running back early next year. And the reason for that is because, you know, Stephon Diggs was a league winner in 2020 because he was drafted in the 7th round and finished number 3 overall.
Right.
And again, same thing with Deebo Samuel this year. He was drafted in the 8th round. He's the number 2 wide receiver. And
that was a real surprise. I thought what's his face? What's the other receiver that everybody was like all Ayuk, Brandon Ayuk. I thought Ayuk was going to be the guy on that team, but
that's mainly because Deebo's so injury prone or had a history of being injury prone. But I will guarantee you this: Deebo will be overdrafted next year. He will. He's going to go in the back of the 1st or the early 2nd, and he's not going to return that production. It's the same thing that happened with Diggs this year. You know, receivers, it's so tough drafting receivers early unless they have a history of consistently being in that top 5, like Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, those receivers that you know are going to be there. Yes, exactly. But drafting those receivers that had a really great year and just assuming that they're going to repeat that same thing, especially when there's a change in offensive coordinator, it just doesn't always hit.
Well, let's be honest, though. Stephon Diggs was not a one-off. It's not like he was a scrub when he was in Minnesota. He was a beast there, and then he gets Josh Allen, who, for my money, is an upgraded quarterback over Kirk Cousins.
Absolutely.
And then, so doing the math in my head, I'm like, I've seen this guy be great, really good to great for 4 or 5 years at this point, and he's getting a better quarterback. Like, fucking, let's go.
Oh yeah, no, there's a reason why he fell to the 7th or 8th round in 2020 in the first place, and it's because nobody thought Josh Allen could throw an accurate deep ball. And then he started throwing an accurate deep ball, and next thing you know, you've got, you combine those two things and you got top 5 receiver production right there. But ultimately, Diggs has never had a history other than last year of finishing in the top 5. That's
got to be relative, though. I mean, I'm sure he's had multiple years back to back where he's hit over 1,000 yards, flirted with double-digit touchdowns.
Double-digit touchdowns, not even close.
Really? Okay, you're the ex-Vikings fan, so I have to believe take your word on that. But I definitely know without looking, he had to have had multiple 1,000-yard seasons in a row. Because I just remember thinking, man, this guy's good.
The thing, Diggs is unquestionably great, but in Minnesota he couldn't stay healthy. He missed 2 or 3 games consistently every single year. 2020 was the first season where he played every single game, and he still almost missed a game with an ankle injury. So I mean, I always watch out for players like that just you had one really great year, but I need to see that over and over again for me to invest a top 2 draft pick in you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. My logic on that wasn't even like the big sexy receipt, like the guy I always fall for. Like that version of that guy would be like DK Metcalf this year, or just somebody that's like really flash in a pan, like really got big upside. Terry McLaurin comes to mind after this season. Like, I don't think I'm touching that next year.
I'll tell you the number 1 player I was set to avoid in drafts this year that was going in the top 2 rounds. And I told myself no matter what, I was not drafting Justin Jefferson in the 2nd round. And I ended up being wrong. He still finished as a top 5 wide receiver, so great. What he did in 2020 was his ceiling.
I strongly disagree, man.
1,400 receiving yards, broke the rookie record, and had 14 or something like that. That to me is a ceiling. And I don't think. What are you hoping to get more than that? Maybe 2 more.
But they're also not stocks. Like, let's say there's a term called regressing to the means, right? So that means you're great all the time. You have one season that is godlike, just stupid, like 2002 Shaq, or like fucking Clayton Kershaw in 2012, or one of these guys that have. There's certain seasons where they're always amazing, and then they have a really good one. I don't think because he had such a crazy season his first year, okay, maybe he doesn't hit those numbers, right, statistically again. But it's not going to be because he's worse or he's getting worse or he's hit his ceiling. He's never going to perform that level again. He performed that level again this way. And by the way, has a legitimate borderline, in my opinion, the number 1 receiver playing on that same team with him that demands his own targets and still is able to get, because I wasn't last year, maybe I'm wrong, but wasn't Adam Thielen injured for a chunk of games last year?
No.
Okay. Maybe I'm off. Maybe I had Dalvin Cook. He missed 1 or 2 games and that was it. I don't know, but I don't think he's going to – I guess what I'm saying is I don't think he's going to – I think, 14 – let's say he got 1,410 touchdowns, whatever, his rookie season. I don't know the numbers. I don't have them in front of me.
That's fair.
Okay, he gets – next year he gets – let's say he goes 1,307. I still think that's a guy you can take in round 2 and feel good about.
Absolutely. I'm not – I remember I said I was wrong.
Okay.
That he was a great pick. He was a top 5 receiver. My point was, just like I said, where I need to see it multiple years in a row, there was no scenario in my mind where I was going to take a receiver in the 2nd round who only did it one time his rookie year, right?
Yeah.
He-
Oh, I
he-
see what
he
you're
had-
saying.
he had
You needed
one
to see
season-
more of it.
Yeah, he had
Got it.
and that's my point. I, in my mind, couldn't possibly get better.
That's where I'm at with Cordero Patterson.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said right there. So
It just comes down to what you believe is like, did I see this player have the best possible season?
mhm.
And I think that that what we saw, rookie shattering numbers, he broke records, and I think that that's his ceiling, and I needed to see more of it before drafting him.
Totally unrelated. Well, it is related, but not on subject at all. Did Jamar Chase? Did Justin Jefferson just break all the rookie records, and then Jamar Chase broke all of his? Is that what happened this year, or does Justin Jefferson still have?
I don't think Jamar Chase had a very bad second half of the season. Jamar Chase did not.
Because that's what they kept talking about. Oh, he's on pace to do this. He's on pace to do that,
and he definitely did not do that.
I think Jamar Chase is the truth, and he's going to be amazing in years to come. But my one caveat is I think that people forgot and are undervaluing T. Higgins. I think that dude is a stud too. I think you could see a very similar thing that they have going on in Minnesota, where you have two alpha dog number one wide receivers, and maybe like how Thielen is the red zone guy and Justin is like the blow the top off the defense bomb guy.
Yep.
I think you could see Jamar Chase being the bomb guy, and then, well, actually, both of them have fucking burners though, man.
I completely agree with you. I think that I jokingly said in the off season, I said I just don't want Bengals players. I said that in the off season. I was like, there's just this stink around Cincinnati as a whole of just not being successful. Like last year, Joe Mixon drafted in the first round, and he gets a foot injury in week 7 or 8, and they never once put him on the IR. They said he hopes to play this coming week. He hopes to play this week, and it's like he never came back. That was a season-ending injury that they didn't even announce was season-ending until week 16, and it's like just.
I don't know if the front office has changed over there or what. They probably still have idiots running the show, but in all reality, if you get enough bites at the apple, if you're consistently dog shit and you get a high round draft picks, like you might not be the best. Like there's a reason why 76ers say trust the process, right? And they just never got a chip. They still got really freaking I think the Bengals are going to be a player for. To me, Joe Burrow looks like he looks like he has championship metal on him, like championship armor. Like he looks like the kind of guy that can win, like find ways to win. And I don't know. I don't know anything about him. All I know is when I watch him play, I always just feel like I'm watching him make the right play.
In week 3, I said they were going to win division. I stand by that. And I furthermore think that they are going to be on top of that division for years to come. I
think it's going to be them and the Ravens, gutting it out, like similar to how the Steelers and the Ravens 10 years ago were always fighting for division.
So the Ravens, in my opinion, got exposed this year. I think Lamar Jackson is an illusion. Hot take.
No.
I think that Lamar Jackson is an illusion, and I think that he is just he's RG3 2.0. I think that this year
field 17 games a season kind of guy for the rest of his career.
I think that he's a run first quarterback like RG3. I never once said injury prone. Hey, happen when you're a running quarterback, but the reality is a good passer. He is not. He makes bad decisions. When he was forced, there were 2 games this season where they basically said game script demanded that he air the ball out, and he threw 6 interceptions in 2 games.
Yeah, I understand that. I get that. I just don't. All I've seen him do is come into the league and every year double his passing yards. And you guys can look this up. Every year he's double. First year he got a certain amount. Second year he got double that, and third year he doubled that.
Well,
And so-
obviously he's going to double the first year. He only
Okay,
played
fine.
4
But
games.
when you can see like consistent improvements, like, okay, maybe he didn't explode into greatness like Josh Allen all of a sudden, or I don't know. I don't know what you guys think of Herbert, but in my mind, I know he's had some bad games, but like when I wouldn't play, I'm like, wow, that's a guy who has baller skills. Like he has a big arm, could put the ball on the money. Like
I think that Justin Herbert's the truth. I think that Justin Herbert's a great quarterback. I think Justin Herbert was a steal considering that the slogan of that draft class was Tank for Tua.
oh, I was the fan club leader of Tank for Tua. I was rooting for the Vikings with you when we went to that game.
Yeah.
And you were starting to get a little annoyed because you wanted me to be sad that we were losing. You wanted to see pain in my face, but I was like, no, we're mailing it in. This is going to be a trash season. But okay, hold on. What I'm saying, why can't a guy grow into greatness? Why can't a guy like Lamar consistently improve his passing when he's already the best at doing something else?
I'm just saying that right now, what I see is that he's not a good passer. I've never once said that he can't grow into greatness or that he can't, eventually succeed. What I said was what I see right now is that he's not a good passer. And I think that his divisional opponent, Joe Burrow, is already light years ahead of him. And I just think that you combine Joe Burrow's skill and ability in only his second year, coming off of an ACL injury, mind you, that Joe Burrow is also Joe Burrow has more weapons. And I just think that my original statement that they are going to be on top of that division, I think that that's going to hold true. The Ravens have a lot more problems aside from just Lamar Jackson. Okay. There was a story that came out. The Baltimore had the worst success rating at recruiting wide receivers, and the reason for that was because there was not enough passing volume to go around to sustain to basically guarantee large contracts.
Right,
for
because receivers make a lot of their money off of incentives. If you get less targets, you're going to get less yards. If you hit less touchdowns,
Exactly.
you're going to hit less incentives. Your paycheck is base, which nobody just looks at their base paycheck for when their contract is signed. They always factor in, oh, well, I'm going to get, I'm great, so I'm going to get 1,100 yards. And, oh, if I hit 5 touchdowns or more, I'm going to hit 6 or 7. So I got, so I get that.
In a year.
But what I would, hang on real quick. What I would say is, I think Joe Burrow looks like what all of us think of when we close our eyes and we think of like good quarterback.
Mm-hmm. And Lamar is not.
But okay, fine. But stay with me here. Hold on. I think that Joe Burrow is really, really good. And I already said it. He looks like a type of guy that I feel like could be a Super Bowl guy. There's a factor here. And this isn't fantasy anymore, but fuck it. We're already here. I think John Harbaugh is one of the top 3 coaches in the league. And if anyone can find a way to win with whatever, it's him. 2, I think that Kyler Murray is a perfect example. And you guys, as Arizona fans, watch this all the time, where I don't know how you feel about this. I think Lamar Jackson is a slightly better runner than Kyler Murray. It's debatable, but I think we can say those are top.
I agree with you.
Okay. Those are top 2 though, right? That's got to be top 2, right? Running quarterbacks.
Okay.
Unless you want to fuck Taysom Hill. Anyways, he's not going to have a job next year. But imagine his passing getting 30% better in the offseason. And now it's average. Mm-hmm. You said it's below average. He's an average passer, and John Harbaugh is able to find a way to have him play like Kyler Murray's capable of playing, where he runs a lot still. There's a lot of design runs, but maybe he has a couple of games where he calls 35 passes, 40 passes.
Right. No, okay. I fear that what you took away from this was by me saying that Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson, that you're thinking that I think Lamar Jackson is a horrible quarterback. What Lamar Jackson is doing is just not sustainable. When you are a run-first quarterback, you can't do that, for your entire career.
I agree.
He is an outstanding for what he does. He's outstanding at it, but it's just my opinion that when you factor in the lack of receiving help, I think it's very difficult to improve as a quarterback when you don't have good options to throw to. Not to take away from Marquise Hollywood Brown. It's just
that's why they drafted Rashad Bateman too.
Exactly. Okay.
And Mark Andrews is no slouch too. That dude's a baller.
Oh, I completely agree. I'm just saying that Cincinnati has 3 great receivers, and
2.5. Yeah, Boyd is really good.
And so I just and they've got an outstanding running game, and I think that once they fire their head coach and get somebody a little bit better in there, Cincinnati's just I just think they're gonna dominate that division. Baltimore also has a defense that they have to fix. But anyway, what else did you want to touch on?
Them titties? No. That's a good take. I still think they're gonna duke it out. That's just me. I think that both of them have a shot to win it all. And I think that real quick, I agree. Running first is not sustainable, but I have seen Lamar, and it's very small, 3-year sample size, right? Trending towards being less 60-40 and starting to be 50-50. And I think you could even see it teeter the other way. We'll see. We'll see how it all pans out. If he stays a running quarterback, I think that team hits playoffs a lot, fizzles out, because now at that point, all you have to do is play contain and maybe have a spy so he can't get free and force him to throw the ball a bunch of times, which so far, when that has happened, it hasn't looked good. But if he can make some serious improvements in the offseason, throwing the ball, and starting to mimic maybe more of a Russell Wilson or a Kyler Murray, where, yes, I'm mobile, but also I'm running looking to throw rather than running looking to run. Mm-hmm. I think if he does that, I think he could be super dangerous. But I'm not going to argue that the Bengals won't necessarily win the division often, because everywhere you look, there's talent.
I say we close it out with a little coach talk.
Coach talk.
I want your take on the current. I don't care about your previous resume. Well, okay. Top 5 best head coaches in the league right now.
Right now. So obviously Bill Belichick. He's doing it with a rookie quarterback that a lot of people passed on. They said, he's slow. He's kind of have a slow throwing motion.
Mac Jones is the best rookie of the year, in my opinion, for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, the bar is pretty low right now.
Yeah,
but,
that's fair.
And we haven't seen much of the kid in San Francisco. I think that he's going to be something to watch for sure.
Trigger Trey?
Yeah, man, that guy is nice.
I agree.
So Bill Belichick, duh. Right after that, I'm going, for my money, John Harbaugh, because I don't necessarily, how I judge coaches, I don't necessarily say, oh, how many Super Bowls do they have? I mean, that's a big factor, but also a big factor for me is what have you done with the least amount of crap around you? And that's why it's not even a conversation. Bill Belichick has won with players, none of Tom Brady, and then players nobody's ever fucking heard of.
Oh yeah.
Before. So he's out of here. Then it's real close between Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh for me, because Mike Tomlin just doesn't go under 500. Even with Duck Hodges throwing the ball, he still wasn't he 8-8 or 9-7 last year with those goons throwing? Those guys were idiots.
Well, last year?
Or was it 2 years ago? When did he have Big Ben was out, Doug Hodges, and then the other idiot that swung his helmet at the whole thing with Cleveland happened. I can't remember, but so
I think it was Mason Rudolph.
I hate that guy, dude. But yeah, he doesn't lose, man. This might be his first year as a coach. Did you know he's never gone under 500 as a coach?
Yeah.
So this might be his first year where that happens, but we'll see. So those 2 and 3, I don't know. You asked me today, I might say John Harbaugh's 2, and vice versa. So that's my top 3, but those guys are real close. Then after that, I mean, it kind of gets murky. You got Sean Payton comes to mind, Andy Reid comes to mind, Pete Carroll comes to mind.
I can't believe you just said Pete Carroll, but we'll get into that later.
Oh God, whatever, man.
Pete Carroll himself just came out like a month ago and said if he didn't have Russell Wilson, he wouldn't have a job.
That he could be saying that the GM drafted such trash.
You are talking about the man who called a passing play on 2nd and inches in the Super Bowl.
That was ridiculous, but he also won a Super Bowl the year prior to that, and he should have won 2. Like, are we going to say he's a bad coach because he made like a terrible call?
I'm not going to
once when he got them to the Super Bowl twice.
I'm not going to say he's a bad coach. I just don't think he's top 5.
That Broncos team they beat was sick. Like historically, video games like dumb. All of those guys were playing out of their minds that year. Didn't Peyton Manning have like fucking almost 6,000 yards?
That was 1 year earlier when they got bounced by the Ravens in the AFC.
You're right.
That legendary team you're talking about lost to Joe Flacco, not Pete Carroll.
Okay, but still, Peyton Manning. They still have the Thomas brothers or whatever on the team at the time. The next year, they still have man. Now you're making me use my memory. I can't remember the running back, but he was like pretty good.
Okay. All right. You think Pete Carroll? All right, go on.
No, you know what? I think I'm gonna go Andy Reid at 4 and Pete Carroll at 5.
So just to recap, you're going. So you would take Pete Carroll over Sean Payton.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I would. 100%.
All right. I think currently best coaches. Currently, I can think of 3 or 4 that I would take above Pete Carroll. In my opinion, Pete Carroll has it right now.
Okay, so instead of shitting on Pete Carroll, what's your top 5?
Well, Bill Belichick, of course.
Duh. Okay.
And then I agree with a lot of what you said about, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid. I don't necessarily. I think that what a lot of people want to do is they want to throw Sean McVay out there, and to be a top 5 coach. But I get it. I get why. But in my opinion, all Sean McVay did was not be Jeff Fisher. I think I'm a firm believer that
I don't know.
I really like Frank Reich in Indianapolis.
He's
think
strong choice. Yeah.
I really like, and unfortunately, this guy's name escapes me, but I think the Titans are very well coached.
Oh, God, yeah. What's his name? The guy that used to coach he was the D coordinator of Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think that the Titans are one of the best currently coached teams in the league. They don't have Derrick Henry. They haven't had AJ Brown for multiple games, and yet they've gone out and they've beaten teams like they've gone out.
Mike Vrabel. Thank you, Ryan.
Vrabel. Vrabel. Yeah. See, that's a weird name. Thanks. Look at that. We've got some production assistants in the back, guys. Let's give a hand to Ryan Roberts real quick, who, by the way, happens to be in the championship game of the very same football league that we're sitting here talking about like a couple of idiots.
And recently grew a very regal beard. I wish he was on camera so we could show you, and all these ladies watching could just see the magic.
Oh, yeah. So many ladies are watching this.
Yeah.
So
he's got the Columbia jacket.
GOONS, that's where they're at.
Yeah. Garage GOONS.
Back to coach talk to wrap this up. I don't like living in the past when it comes to because I did say greatest current coaches. And obviously Bill Belichick can still be in that conversation because he is not irrelevant yet and still finds a way to win. But when I look at coaches right now, everybody that you named, with the exception of Pete Carroll, is still winning and still finding ways to get it done. And in my opinion, what one of the reasons why I don't put Pete Carroll in the top 5 is simply because he hasn't found answers for when his players get injured and when they get stagnant. And in my opinion, they run a very stagnant offense that has caused Russell Wilson to waive his no trade clause. I don't think Russell Wilson will be a Seahawk next year. And
He's never. This will be the first year he misses playoffs in the toughest division in football since Pete Carroll's been a head coach. You were talking about, I don't want to get caught up in recency bias, and right now Russell Wilson's got a broken ass finger. He's been throwing duck balls since week 4, and I'm just if your argument is I don't want to fall in love with the past, dude. This will be the first year, and I don't know how long he's been head coach of that team. I want to say since 07 or some shit. But
let's not get carried away. 07's a little long.
Pete Carroll? Yeah, when did the whole SC shit go down?
Well, they weren't making playoffs every year since 07.
This is the first year he'll miss playoffs since being the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks.
Something's got to give because they weren't in the playoffs all the way back in 2007, and he wasn't. Either he hasn't been the head coach since 2007 or
2010. Okay.
All right. Well, anyway, I just think he's one of those guys that had more talent than what he was actually willing to or capable of coaching. I think that he was one of those guys that just had a lot of talent on his team, and I mean, okay.
He's like a defensive guy, right?
Okay. They've statistically had like the worst defense in the league for the last 3 years.
No, I know, but he also literally had the Legion of Boom, and then those guys were so great that they couldn't afford to pay them all, and they slowly got picked apart by the rest of the league.
I know. Okay, okay. So clearly we disagree about Pete Carroll. When it comes to these other coaches who are getting it done now, I just think they look better than him right now.
That's fair. I mean, yeah, he could be on his way out. I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I think he's had a very illustrious career, and I
want to give an honorable mention to Kyle Shanahan.
I don't buy what Kyle's selling. I think that
an honorable mention.
Yeah, I like LaFleur as an honorable mention, way over Kyle Shanahan.
Yes,
if you're talking about head coaches.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I actually like LaFleur better than Vrabel. I think LaFleur is.
He also has like Aaron Rodgers, so
well, so did McCarthy. I mean,
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he gets him to the Super Bowl, then maybe it's a different discussion. But didn't McCarthy basically make playoffs every year Aaron was healthy too, just because Aaron's just such a fucking stud?
Yeah, but never with the records that LaFleur is getting.
That's true.
LaFleur
is a genius, bro.
Aaron Rodgers is getting older, and they are about to walk into not only their third straight NFC North title, but they're going to be this will be their third straight year having a bye. They're just dominating, and Rodgers is only getting older, and LaFleur just keeps finding ways to win. You have Rodgers, you have Devontae Adams, yet they run the ball and drain more clock offensively than any other team in the league. And it's just, he's a great coach.
All right, fellas. Well, thanks for watching. It's the most trash show on YouTube. There you have it from Andrew Fox, fantasy senior analyst at the Garage Goons headquarters. Recently got the title. Don't expect any difference on your paycheck. That doesn't exist. But yeah, so running backs and tight ends, if you're into that stuff. And thanks for watching. Still the most trash show on YouTube. And shouts out to Ryan and his beautiful beard.